most anticipated rock holiday tradition returns. Trans Siberian Orchestra, live in concert, coming to a city near you. A legendary blend of rock, classical, and holiday music for the entire family. Don't miss Trans Siberian Orchestra, live in concert. The Ghosts of Christmas Eve. Go to tsotickets.com for info.
Hi, I'm Jazz Kangas for Speak Minneapolis, and my guest today is a living icon of the Christmas season. He was a guitarist with Megadeth and Alice Cooper, but you may be most familiar with his work as part of the seasonal standards who we hear every year illuminating the season in all five of our senses. He'll be coming with the Trans Siberian Orchestra, for whom he is the lead guitarist, composer, and musical director, on December 30th for two shows at the XL Energy Center. The great Al Pitrelli. Al, how are you doing today?
I'm doing, after that intro, I couldn't get any better. Thank you so much for all that.
Spectacular. Well, you give a lot of great inspiration to use. So we're looking now. It's the Trans Siberian Orchestra was founded in 1996 by Paul O'Neill, and you, and the touring began for it in 1999, if I'm correct. And we've seen, especially in that time, and even in the last like 5-6 years or so, such an explosion of changes in live performances, in touring, and concerts across the industry. So, how different is touring with TSO now compared to like when those first shows started in '99?
God, excuse me. I always try to compare it to like having a child. As an infant, it's like, oh my God, this brand new baby, and you take care of it and bathe it and feed it and blah blah blah, and then it grows up into a toddler, adolescence, and now it's a young adult. So the first tour we had done in '99, there was 7 cities, one 24-foot box truck, and 2 buses and a fog machine. It was awesome. This year, I think we have 12 buses, 21 tractor trailers, and a lot more fog machines. Every year it's grown up. Paul O'Neill, from the jumps, always wanted to put everything back into the tour, back into the show, make it bigger and better year after year after year. And that trajectory has lasted, you talk about 24 years of touring. And like you had said, the official start of the band was in '96, but it actually started a year prior when we first recorded Christmas Eve 12/24, in '95. So you're talking about like decades of building this thing into what it's become right now. And the fact that, in your intro, you talked about it's become synonymous with the holidays. I was happy just to make great music. I was happy to be part of what Paul created was a great art form. Now it's the kind of thing where people say all the time, you're part of a holiday tradition through town, or we play your music in our homes from Thanksgiving to New Year's. That's a wonderful compliment and a huge responsibility. It's one thing to be in a good rock band. It's another thing to be part of the fabric of somebody's family.
And you mentioned that, and it has truly become a strong tradition. You see generations across generations coming to those shows, playing that music, just hearing it, something about it, the authenticity of it, along with the traditionalism you don't really get in many mediums, let alone within something in the holiday season. So at what point did you realize it had become, if there was a specific point, this thing that was an institution, as it were?
I think over the years, there's been a lot of moments where I kind of go, hey, wait a minute, but the most recent one is my 7-year-old daughter, Layla. She's in 2nd grade. And now, we're in the thick of the holiday season. Her elementary school principal is like, I go to see your dad's concert, or, they're playing the song, in the what do you call it, the orchestra concert at the elementary school. And she's like, that's my daddy. She kind of don't get it, but everybody around her is talking about, her guidance counselor, her teacher, the principals, the lunch lady. It's become that thing. And, Layla hasn't been out to a show since before COVID, so she really has zero clue. And she's kind of reacted to all these other people making such a fuss about it. And she's like, Daddy, I think I'm proud of you. I'm like, okay, thanks. That's
a beautiful thing. Yeah, and to have something like that, and it's your show, and like in that music, it's gonna outlive all of us. Like, it is something that is gonna be just perpetually in existence. So yeah,
that was always Paul O'Neill's plan. I spent literally half my life with the man. And, he would say 1,000 times over the years, I just want this thing to live past all of us. He wanted, to become a Frank Capra or to become, just somebody who puts an art form out there, and in perpetuity, it just continues to grow and grow. And I think he's accomplishing that, because I look out in the audiences, and I was talking to somebody the other day, I forget who. I was doing an interview with somebody, and they said, yeah, I used to come see you when I was a teenager. Now they're bringing their children, or who had children, now they're bringing their grandchildren, and it's one of those things that, like, you can't market that. You can't really sell that. You surround yourself with talented people, like Andrew Ross is just about to walk past me on the bus, and you stand up there and you bring Paul's characters in the stories to life, and people, they just fall in love with it. I can't sell that down to anybody. So you either like it or you don't like it. And to say that we're going on 28 years, it'll be 29 years after the new year, it's kind of like you can't beat the math.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, but going back to the very, very beginning, just out of curiosity, because the name Trans Siberian Orchestra, and I've always loved the story, how it's about the one railroad in Siberia that goes across it, and how that's like a beacon and a symbol of hope. And now it's become so synonymous. You can't imagine the group called anything else. Just out of curiosity, were there any other names on the table at first?
I don't think so. That was Paul's thing, he saw the big picture. In 95, when Christmas Eve, Saturday, April 12/24 accidentally hit the radio, and it became the #1 requested song in America, like overnight, that big brain of his, the light bulb went off. And I was just, like, happy to hear, me playing guitar on the radio. I was like, this is awesome. He's like, now there's more to this. I'm like, okay. And he goes, I'm going to write an entire story about that, around that one song, and I'm going to call it the Trans Siberian Orchestra. And he was so excited. It was infectious. Like, okay. Again, who would have thought back then that it was going to become what it's become? My wife sent me a clip the other day of, Disney in Disney World down in Florida. Their big light show in the evening is to TSO music. It's like, huh? That's kind of awesome. So it has become that, And did I ever see it coming? No. Was there any other names in question? Maybe. But it's like Led Zeppelin, not comparing us to Led Zeppelin, but kind of a peculiar name for 1968. But it became synonymous with, like, probably one of the greatest rock and roll bands ever. And now we become synonymous with, being a pretty big, spectacular Christmas holiday thing. And I'm just proud of it, dude. It's like, again, going back to my analogy of, like, one of your children. I'm so proud of what this thing is growing up to be. If this is Paul's baby, I'm just like the weird uncle in the corner.
Hey, which are always important part of the family unit. So,
always. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. So with this show, it's the Ghost of Christmas Eve show that you're bringing, and it's also listed plus greatest hits. So when you mentioned, going on like the 29 years of it, how is it determining? I know with the rehearsals you do in, I believe, Iowa is where you do like the major rehearsals, right?
Yeah.
So when you're deciding the set list for that going out, how do you determine which fall into what you want for the greatest hits and the favorites that you present as the second half of the show?
It's 6 months of meetings and conferences and conference calls and Zoom meetings between the O'Neill family management, myself, the musical director for the East Coast band. There's just, all we do is argue and when we stop arguing, we know that, that's a good idea. If, we all disagree until we agree. And once we agree, we're like, okay, now we're on to something. When, Paul passed away, it'll be 7 years, it's coming April. So prior to that, we'd all have similar conversations, but, he'd have the final word. Now, in his memory and his honor, we say, a lot of times we'll say, well, what would Paul do? And we were around him for decades, so we kind of sort of know what he would do, But it's a constant conversation. I'll get home. I don't know, we got 2 weeks left. I'll get home like early January. And by the middle to end of January, we're going to start having these conversations again for next year. Mm-hmm. It's a year-long argument to make the show better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which a good amount of time to start prepping. And then when you get to it, and that's, again, the beauty of having the weird uncle at the holidays, to be that, strong energy, all through the perpetuating. And you mentioned that because the final show is here in Minnesota at the St. Paul XL Energy Center on December 30th. So do you have any particular memories of performing here in Minnesota? And did it just be happenstance, or is there a reason you kind of chose Minnesota to be where the finale of this year's run is?
I think that was just the routing, the availability of the buildings, going, albeit a basketball team, a hockey team, whoever's occupying the building. Okay, it's your house. We're just the guests for the evening,
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it was one of the first arenas we ever played going back to the early 2000s. One of our singers, Nate, grew up there, so it's a big homecoming show for him. And I just think it was like the luck of the draw to finish out the tour, in such a wonderful place. And, it's very bittersweet ending a tour. So it's going to be a very special pair of concerts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I'm very excited to take it in. It's Trans Siberian Orchestra, Ghosts of Christmas Eve and Greatest Hits. 2 shows, December 30th at the XL Energy Center. Al, thank you so much. And the absolute happiest holidays. And thank you for keeping things merry and bright for so long. And for this show, keeping things truly jingle all the way.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for the time today. Have a happy holiday. My best to your family. And I'll talk to you soon.
The most anticipated rock holiday tradition returns. Trans Siberian Orchestra, live in concert, coming to a city near you. A legendary blend of rock, classical, and holiday music for the entire family. Don't miss Trans Siberian Orchestra, live in concert. The Ghosts of Christmas Eve. Go to tsotickets.com for info.